Hi everyone, Allison at My Safe Place here. Just wanted to do a little follow-up to my last video about being blindsided at my shamanic journeying workshop back in December. And I wanted to let everybody know here that anything I express in any of my videos is always just my personal experience and my opinion based on that experience. And that sometimes I read books or watch other videos with other survivors of abuse or experts such as Chris Cardenas or Dr. Ross Rosenberg, etc. And often I'm paraphrasing things that I've heard them say. But as always, check in with your own counselors, your own conscience, your own awareness, because everybody's experience is different, and we all have a valid point of view and something to share on that. So I welcome questions, opinions of your own. Please feel free to comment, and if you'd like some more information on any of the people that I quote or watch, I'd be more than happy to give that to you. So unfortunately, we've got this crazy gray typical West Coast rainy day, so that means the light is very poor coming in and my camera isn't all that great, so I apologize for the poor quality of the video, but I don't do, at least at the moment, I'm not doing any beauty demonstrations, makeup demos or anything, so hopefully that doesn't really matter. So on with the follow-up. As you may have heard from the last video, at this workshop, that was being given by my shamanic instructor, who also happens to be my naturopathic doctor that I see for naturopathic healing, etc. And he does his shamanic work completely separate from that. I was really tortured by that event. It was very hard for me to recover from being blindsided by one of my fellow classmates in a way that I found very strange. I was just standing up, and it was my turn to stand up and talk about what my intentions for the workshop that day were. So it was very personal, and it felt very much like a personal attack when it was put out there if anybody had any questions for me. So it was very strange, and I had a hard time not ruminating on it after it was over and really questioning whether I should continue, because this workshop was the first day to sort of introduce us all to what was going to be a mentorship program for a year, including some more intensive workshops within that mentorship program. And this first day was free of charge, and just to give us an idea to see if it was right for us and we were right for it. So I was really questioning whether I was going to be continuing with that given this person's response. And I had no idea. I had met her once before at a prior weekend workshop and not had any particular red flags. So it truly was a blindside, and I didn't handle it well. Now, a lot of the times I've been looking at red flags in other people, red flags for narcissism, red flags to indicate that someone might be toxic or manipulative. And that's all well and good. But if we can't handle our own responses, then knowing what all the red flags are is kind of a moot point, which is the way I see it. That's my opinion of it. So we kind of have to do our own work on this. And if this event showed me anything, it was that I was completely and utterly unprepared for a blindside, meaning no red flags, no indicators that anything was going to happen. Full on face plant. I had a hard time not dissociating. I had a hard time not staying present with the instructor and with my other classmates. I was weeping the whole time after it happened. And it was tough. And once again, I ruminated on that, and that happened in mid-December. And we were dealing with there was a family illness. My husband had to go away for a couple of weeks to go be with family. Plus Christmas was coming up. It was my husband's 50th birthday. And then in January is my son and my daughter's birthday. So it's a huge emotional time. And I really struggled. And then last week, I had my naturopathic appointment with my naturopath. And one of the first things we talked about was the event and what had happened. And I've got to tell you, he was incredibly validating. He asked me how I was doing, and I told him that I had been really struggling to recover from it. And he sort of questioned that a little bit, and then we got into it a little bit later, and I explained what the problems for me had been at that time. And I told him it wasn't so much what she did, it was more about my reaction to it and how unprepared I was for it and how I struggled to really stay focused. And then he understood, a lot better. And he explained to me that some people, when they're doing group work, and we're doing deep group work like this is, something can get triggered. And that can happen. What he didn't understand, and I'm sort of paraphrasing, but the word he used was the method of delivery for her trigger. He said she lashed out at you, which was the part I really didn't get. And just hearing him say those words and acknowledge that this was a lash out, or my word, which had been an attack, and very, very personal. And this is from someone who doesn't know me and I don't know her. So he really validated that for me. And I felt this tremendous peace come over me. And he said, he said, just so you know, I don't think she's continuing with the program. He doesn't know for sure. She hasn't signed up yet. And the program starts actually this coming Sunday. So we'll find out then. Both of us will find out then, probably, if she's continuing with the program. But at that point, after I had been validated, it actually didn't matter to me whether or not she was going to be there. Because that moment of validation, and I have to give full credit to him for being really present with me and understanding where I was coming from and using language that made sense to me, in the sense that he called it lashing out and I called it an attack, which are basically synonyms. So I really understood that he felt how bad it was for me, especially after I explained that I was unhappy with my response. Not so much because people are going to get triggered by you. This is life. This is who we are. We're human beings. Not everybody's going to get along. And that doesn't make the other people toxic or you toxic necessarily. Sometimes there's just an energetic mismatch or, a character, just a personality conflict that it is what it is. And that's fine. But we don't have to engage necessarily in someone in getting defensive when someone attacks. We can choose to walk away. And if we find ourselves in the middle of attacking back, we can choose to walk away. My concern with what had happened is I didn't feel like I had the power of choice. I felt like my body was going into an immediate emotional flashback. I was incredibly triggered and the emotions coming out were uncontrollable, which is why I was weeping. And when I look back on it after I was validated, I could actually see that there had been, through that emotional flashback, I was actually releasing some stuff that had been repressed. And I think we've got to allow ourselves some space to do that. And I think I want to take some credit as well, because we can be validated up the wazoo. When someone can be validating you and saying, yes, you're right, this was awful. I feel for you, I get where you're coming from. But if we are not ready to receive that validation, if we haven't done our part to get us ready to receive the validation, it might as well be water off a duck's back. In one ear, out the other, right over your head. we are not going to absorb it if we are not ready to accept it and allow it. So what this whole experience has taught me is that emotional flashback I had was a good thing. It showed me that I needed to do some more work. And it showed me that the work I had been doing on meditating on it and thinking about it before my appointment with my naturopath actually prepared me for the validation that I received. And that once I received his validation and I was open and allowing that validation to affect me, I left the office. I left that appointment, and the whole ruminating and worrying and freaking out about it, about her, about anyone else attacking me and how I would react was completely gone. And the other thing he said was, I think that's important, especially in this terms of work, in terms of energy, and in terms of understanding that a lot of these toxic people or toxic events, even if she isn't a toxic person, this toxic event, in his word, wasn't an accident. And what he meant by that, not that she was making a personal attack specifically on me necessarily, but that this was a perfect learning moment, a synchronous learning moment in my life to show me where I had progressed to and what I needed to work on next. So I'm hoping by talking about this example of mine, we can get to an understanding that I didn't have before in looking for validation, in looking for approval, in looking for healing, that we are only going to absorb whatever it is that we're ready to absorb. So seeing a therapist, seeing a counselor, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, it's only going to go as deeply, it's only going to penetrate as deeply as we are ready to allow it to penetrate. That we have to meet them halfway, and that we have to be prepared to do our own work. Because we can keep going in to see our counselors, and it was, just let me say on the side here, it was incredibly helpful that he was actually in the room and witnessed it. And a lot of the time when we're working with counselors or therapists, they're just hearing our side of the story. They don't get to see both sides, so they can only go so far in terms of the validation. So someone who's actually present and who can validate you is incredibly powerful. But I still don't think it would have been enough if I hadn't been ready at that time to accept it. So that's my journey for today. That's how far I've come. I'm really looking forward to Sunday and beginning this year of mentorship and shamanic journeying. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know that I originally trained, originally I'm a high school teacher, but I did, after cancer and healing, working on my own healing, I trained as a hypnotherapist and a practitioner of NLP and EFT and Psych K and heart resonance energy work. And this shamanic work has sort of coming to me, and I haven't seen clients for about 3 years now, a little bit more actually. I keep getting the timeline wrong. I get confused about when I actually stopped, but I did have a crash and burnout. I do have to do a lot of my own work before I can go back. I feel I have the integrity to go back and continue working with clients. So this is really about my personal journey through the burnout and through the going no contact with narcissistic family members, cluster B family members, and what kind of work has to be done to get us to where we want to be. I would like to be functional again. I do have physical issues that have come up because of the powerful cancer treatment I received. It did destroy my thyroid. My pituitary took a big hit, my brain stem, and I'm about 2 years ahead of the research curve. By year 15, 60% of patients have passed away from this particular cancer. I'm going on year 18, so yay me. But there's a lot we don't know about what the effects are going to be, because my whole brain basically took a big hit of radiation, and I feel the effects of physical strain very, very quickly and easily. So I'm hoping that the shamanic work will add a spiritual element to a lot of the healing work that I already do. I'm a big believer in Western medicine as well. I don't just stick to naturopathy or homeopathy. I really like an integrated approach. So, and I'm open to all kinds of things, and I've tried wonderful healing modalities that if anybody feels like sharing what they do to help themselves, mind, body, or spirit, I'd love to hear from you. We're in this together. I don't know if we only live once, but who cares? Life is short. Let's get this done. Let's enjoy it. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching.